Hi guys, in this short video I just want to talk about my usage of the iPad Pro for the past year. So this was, I think, Apple's flagship device for 2018 that would have been selling in stores. They would have promoted it for their keynote in 2017. So I have the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. It's 256 gigabytes. And then there's other specs related to it. It has the liquid retina display, whatever that really means. It has that, I forgot, Bionic AC chip or whatever they have inside of the actual device, the hardware. And I don't care so much about the specs as a user as I do about its functionality, right? Its accessibility and longevity. So whenever I'm looking at any device, I'm thinking about those things. I'm not thinking about just strictly, oh, is it an Apple product? Is it an Android product? I almost don't care. It's about its usability and its life. So some of the things I'll say about the iPad Pro, I enjoyed this device. For the past year, I have enjoyed using the iPad Pro, and I would recommend it to somebody that was looking for a device that they thought would be reliable and one that they thought they could use for years to come. I do feel like it stood the test of a year, and where I expect to see some problems I'm not seeing. And I use the device quite a bit, so I would expect that any kind of latent problems that I'd encounter with the operating system and or apps related to the operating system would show itself pretty clearly, I think, within the span of a year, for me anyway, because of how much I actually use the device. And so one of the things that I personally think is a pain point as somebody buying a device like a tablet is actually has to do with the screen's refresh rate and its scrollability. So over time, maybe the processor is, been burdened with too much, and maybe the screen will get laggy. That's one thing that I don't personally like. But you'll notice here with the iPad Pro, it's pretty responsive. It's probably maybe like 20 milliseconds behind my finger as it drags, but it's almost imperceptible, which, to me is a great thing. As a user, I don't want to see that something I purchased in the store that looked really, really crisp and that moved like instantaneously with my finger, how it's now all of a sudden become really slow, choppy, and it's not working the way I want it to. And so I do feel like it's maintained that over the span of a year. And also to the display, which was great. I mean, I think most devices now have a great display, and then their ability to have the refresh rates on the screens, like 120 hertz, I think, for the Apple's refresh rate. But anyways, the actual display itself is beautiful. I do think the display is nice. I don't care about the marketing gimmick, the retina display thing. Or liquid retina display. I don't care about that gimmick, however you want to word it. Just as long as it looks good and it maintains that look for the longevity of the product, that's what I care about, right? So it's upheld that end of it. Something here too that I personally like is the speakers for it. If you're ever in the kitchen, and this is me personally, if I'm cooking something and I'm trying to get, specifics on how to cook something, I don't want to have my earphones in so much. I do want to be able to just hear what's being said on my device. And maybe I'm not sitting it right next to my food because I don't want it to get all covered in grease. And so the actual speakers for this are pretty good. This is Jump by Van Halen. You can hear a little bit of the bass coming through. And this is max volume. It's pretty loud, considering it's just a little half an inch. I don't even know how big the speaker is. I'm assuming it's less than half an inch. I don't know how big the speaker is, but it sounds great. I know previous iPads, if you compare them, you can actually take out like an older iPad, compare it volume-wise, and you'll notice right away that the volume is a lot more crisp. It's a lot more clean. There's more bass, and you can hear it from further away, right? So that's another thing. I think a pain point for me would have been like, I like listening to music. I like listening to content. And I don't want to be tethered to necessarily my headphones just because I don't need them all the time. This device offers that. Something else here too that I want to talk about kind of has to do with an accessory more than anything else. Whenever Apple said they were going to be using a pencil, I just kind of rolled my eyes and said, okay, here we go. Here's another stylus on the market that we don't need, but you're going to pretend that I need it, and I'm going to end up buying it, and then I'm not going to use it. I was wrong about the Apple Pencil. I will say the Apple Pencil is pretty responsive. If you can see here, I've kind of drawn it a little bit already, but you can see how responsive it really is. You can't really see that well on here, but you know, it's responsive up to, I can't even tell that there's a difference between when I make the stroke and whenever it appears on the screen. So kudos to Apple on this product in particular. I use it specifically to take notes, medical notes for my job, or if I go into meetings, I have to take notes. And I prefer taking notes because for memory purposes, I tend to remember more when I'm taking notes. So this is great. I do feel like it feels like, out of all the styluses and things out there, I do feel like it feels the most like a pen in your hand. The only downside to it has to do with the actual iPad Pro itself. Because the casing here, at least maybe it's my own fault, I don't know, but the casing itself feels glossy, right, for the OtterBox. So when I'm trying to write, if my hand's ever slipping, I feel that on the screen. I don't know what it's like to actually have the device out and then write on it, but I can imagine it'd be comparable to that. So if you can get like maybe a screen display that gives you a more textured feel, maybe that will solve that little issue of feeling like your hand is sliding a little bit as you write. But I will say this is by far the accessory that I've used the most with the iPad Pro, and it has been one of the features that I would recommend if somebody especially is like a med student or a student just taking notes in college. You can house all your information inside of here, and it's going to be stored properly, but then also too, it's your own handwriting. It's great. So that's what I'll say about the Apple Pencil. I do think that there are two things here though. If somebody's looking at this product, because now I'm pretty much done. It's a great product. I do think that you could buy it comfortably and you'd be happy with it. But here's the one thing that I think you might not be happy with initially. And this is the thing that took me the longest to figure out which one I'm going to get. Because Apple had different versions. I think it was like the 9.5 or 9 inch. And then they have the 10.5 inch. And then they had the 12 inch. I held the 12 inch in the store. It's really, really big and bulky. And even though I do music, I could see the application that, okay, if I have a score, I want to be able to see all of it and to be big enough for me to look at. But I didn't feel like the price difference, the size of it, the bulkiness of me having to tote it around, it didn't seem worth it to have the 12 inch. It's really big. It looks really cool in the store, but day-to-day use, I didn't feel like I would want to have a 12-inch tablet walking around. The 10.5 was like, okay, this is okay size. It feels like kind of like a notebook or a journal that you carry around. It's not that heavy. I feel like the 12-inch was a little heavier, a little bit bigger, bulkier. And that's maybe fine for some people that are doing art, or maybe they are doing scores, or maybe they're doing visual related things that they really need 12 inches to work with. But for myself, I didn't think it was something that added much value. So that was one of the things at first was like deciding what size should you get as far as the display goes. As far as everything else inside of it, if it's an iPad Pro, I think most of the other components are basically the same. The processor's the same. The kind of display that you're going to get is going to be the same. And even if it's not, you might not be able to tell the difference whenever you're actually looking at the two as far as processing power and then actual display, right? So keeping that in mind if you're going to go and buy one of these products. I know I think they're about to release the next generation, which is like 11 inch and 12 inch. But this is a product that I would recommend still is definitely one that you could get and you could feel comfortable buying today. So the second kind of pain point or thing that I would talk about that held me up from getting the product too has always been the same thing with Apple every time. And it's just something that I kind of roll my eyes at a little bit too. Like, okay, well, why do you guys always have your memory so fixed? Right? Apple has been that way. And of course, they can sell you the less expensive memory option and still get you into, you know, the Apple family, right? They had like 64 gigabytes. I don't know what the actual amounts were for the previous year, but I think this is generally what it goes like now. It's like 64, 100 and something. 256 is what I have. Then it's like 500. And then now I think this next coming year, they're going to have a terabyte of memory, which is pretty impressive. But my thing is, like, unless you're going to be using all that memory, I don't know how much you're going to actually, you don't want to overspend on something that you're not going to need. So 256 was perfect for me because I feel like I use the device enough and I do enough things related to video, and especially video, that it would take up a lot of that space. If you're not doing things related to video or things that are going to take away a lot of your memory, I kind of feel like it's buying a house, a 5-bedroom house, whenever you're just one person living in a house. You have all that extra space, but you don't need it. So that's my take on this product. I do think that you should spend time thinking about how much memory you actually need, the size of it, and then the usage of it. Right? So most of mine is taking notes. I do some video related stuff on mine. I put all my books and everything inside of here so I don't have to carry them around all the time, right? But the other stuff like the camera on it, I'm never really super impressed actually with the camera on the tablet. I always feel like the camera on the phones are better. I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination that it feels that way, or maybe the actual, as you blow up the image, right, the pixels get a little bit more choppy as you see them. And so I'm not the biggest fan of the camera on any of these, even though they say it's like a 4K camera. I don't take pictures with my tablet, so it's not something that I can really give you a lot of insight on. But I do think that if you're looking to buy a tablet, I do think the iPad Pro is a good choice. If you're in the market for a tablet, just consider what it is that you're looking for. You know, reading customer reviews. I'm not going to tell you to just buy an iPad Pro. There's plenty of other devices out there that maybe suit your personality and then also suit the needs better than an iPad Pro. That's just my review of that for using it for a year. I think it's a great product. And, you know, if you guys have any comments or whatever, feel free to put them in the little boxes below. All right, bye.